welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Munoz. This is part of my 29 Days of Magic series where I get to interview 29 phenomenal Black women for 29 straight days. I am delighted to do it every year. The stories that come out are incredible, and the people I get to meet who I didn't know before are always awesome. And so I so love doing this. And today I'm super delighted to have Tyra Searcy, who's a product manager on the show. She's got a great story, and I can't wait for y'all to hear all about it. Hi, Tyra.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, just chatting away. Every woman on the planet for 29 straight days. It's just, yeah, that's what I do.
Absolutely.
I'm so delighted to have you on the show. First question, always handsome. Answer is always unpredictable. I'm sure yours would be no different. So, Tyra, what's your all-time favorite job?
My all-time favorite job was when I was a customer care product support manager. And my job was to work very closely with all of the call centers to understand what do customers call about when they run into issues with their subscription. And it sounds a little, I think at the time I was not as interested in that work, to be quite honest, but it gave me a really great way to understand people and the things that they go through every day. I was able to visit call centers and have a very deep relationship with the people that work there and understanding how they saw their jobs, how they felt about people who would call. And also I got a very like no yeah, I got a very interesting perspective about like how entitled people feel when they pay for a service. And I think oftentimes when we have issues as subscribers of something or members of something, we typically think like, I want this fixed because I pay for it. And we don't think that when we call centers, like we're talking to human beings who have their own lives and they're not getting paid much, and they're trying to make it through the day just like we are. So that got me really passionate about product and got me really passionate about people and trying to be human first. So that was my favorite job. I think it opened up the doors to the rest of my growth and path in life.
Wow. And honestly, I never thought about that because I always think that like it's got to be a thankless job working in a call center because like you can catch somebody on a bad day every day, and you're just
Absolutely.
like, I just trying not to lose my job. Could you just
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. No, and it really comes down to like they're trying not to lose their job, but then also the customer themselves, depending on what time of the day they're calling, they're passionate and upset because they're also like, I'm not even supposed to be on the phone, maybe, or I have other things I want to spend my time doing. And so you have this conflict and this friction between two people who are trying to get an issue resolved, but they're not always seeing eye to eye or being empathetic to the other person's experience.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna say
I
that teaches you a lot of that, right? Lots
it
of
does.
empathy because you're like, okay, I see the vision. I also
Hmm.
see why this is not clear to you. So like,
Absolutely.
let's try to find that middle ground. And yeah, that and also builds a muscle for you to like take foolishness from people and not curse them out.
Absolutely. But I think on the other side of it was like, as a person who's just an observer on it, you start to hear the same issues all day and you look at the company and you go, why haven't we fixed
And then
this?
fix this.
You know, you're
Like,
getting 500 people calling, going off on people who make pennies on the dollar, all day, every day. And this is something that your company can control and can optimize. And so it makes you look at all parties involved and be like, we should fix this. We should treat people better. We have to be more patient. And it just gives you a different, look out on life.
I can totally see that. It's like because if the same problem's happening, that's it's now a you problem, buddy. It really is.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. And a great way of sort of thinking about how that sort of opens up your whole universe for what you want to do. So going from that all-time favorite job to where we are now, what was that journey like?
That journey, it came out of me being passionate about what I said earlier, seeing companies not answer customer problems. And I'll be honest, one of the things that really got me is the call centers that I was working with were predominantly Black and Latino. And what you have is a certain subscriber who is typically white and wealthy, who is call and go off on these people for things that they can't control. And me being a Black woman, I'm watching them, I'm watching them endure this type of language and this type of verbal beatdown, like I said, for pennies on the dollar. And I started thinking, well, there's a product manager in here somewhere that's responsible for fixing login issues, for billing issues. There's, ops deliverers who their entire job is to make sure that you get your items delivered on time. How are we working with those in the call centers to deliver messages to those who have control over their products to get things fixed. So I found my way in a position where I was becoming more of a voice of the customer and also a voice for the people in the call centers. And I started building relationships in tech in my current company at that time and started just going to them and saying, hey, you have all this innovative stuff on your roadmap, but did you know that 2,000 people can't log in into their account every day? Like, did you know that equates to like 100 hours in call center times, which equates to hundreds of thousands of dollars in a year? And so being able to tell that story got me into a place where I was like, okay, I like being the voice of the customer. But if product management is about prioritizing a good user experience, alleviating issues, but also thinking about long-term solutions, then how can I build that perspective that I gained in customer care and then use that to become a very user centric, human centric product manager? So I took that opportunity to start building tiny features with the help of some really great mentors in product management. And they taught me how to write requirements. They taught me how to create decks and talk to leadership about initiatives I'm passionate about. And I was very grateful to have had mentors in my life who just kept opening doors for me professionally. And so I went from working in customer care to being an associate product manager. And then from there, doors just kept opening. So that's how I ended up getting into tech. I was always interested in product management because I had also been in a scenario where I'd been in a meeting and we were with a bunch of engineers. And I remember my boss at the time had left that meeting and said, I have no idea what they just talked about. And we had been in that meeting for over an hour. And I was like, I don't ever want to be in a meeting where I have no idea what is going on. And it wasn't her position, too, but it made me think also, what is a career that'll allow me to speak multiple languages, that'll allow me to be very thoughtful about stakeholders horizontally, not just vertically. And all of these things work together to get me there.
I love that. And I think it's so important because one, you exist as a product manager, which I think is just delightful for folks to see that this is what product manager looks like. It's not what
Mhm.
everyone else assumes it is. Like it looks like you.
Mhm.
Um, and it doesn't require you to like have to know how to code every single thing on earth, right?
No, not at all. I don't know how to code at all. I took a couple classes. It was horrible. But it was but it was more so being able to go to designers and engineers and saying, okay, what type of requirements do you like? I'm sure you don't want me to design for you. So how do you like me to describe the problem that we're trying to solve? If I'm not coding for you directly, in what way do you want me to write these requirements? Is it through the business lens or the customer lens? And building my skill set to say, can I deliver information that allows you to accomplish the goal of the problem I want to solve? And so I still have some gaps. I'm learning every day. I just joined a new company, and every day I'm constantly like, I've never heard this question in my life. I have no idea what's going on. But at the same time, I think the reality is so many people don't. And so it's just leaning on each other to say, how do we get to our end goal?
Well, I love that you explained this in such a lovely way. It's basically you're the translator
Absolutely.
because you have to help the folks on the development, on the creative, but also on management understand everyone's universe, and you sort of are like the center. You're the center of it all because it allows folks to be like, okay, Tyra knows what's up. Like, please translate this for me because like I don't want to sit here in a mountain of code. But I also really appreciate you saying that, like, it's so important that when you're in those meetings, you don't want to be the one who doesn't know what's happening, but also, like, if I don't know, let me go find out. I don't have to know every single thing, but I need to know enough to be dangerous. And, like, I've always said it with my career when I started out working in tech. It's like, I don't even know how to do every single thing, but I should have a
Right.
basic understanding that, like, everything doesn't go, woo, oh man. Like, because then that's when mistakes happen and all of other things will happen.
Absolutely. And I think also one thing to add to that is once you start demonstrating to people that you care about understanding them, they're going to throw you a leg out there. They're going to help you pull you in to say, okay, let's sit down, allow me to teach you. And so I think that's when people are constantly asking me, like, how do I get into product management? And how did you get there? It's really just being inquisitive and ensuring that people see you as an ally to whatever they're trying to accomplish. And then from there, like you said, it's just continuing to put the pieces together and continuing to talk. I feel like you do so much of that also in your life where you're just bringing people together and solving problems and creating that space, and it's honestly what product management is as well.
Yeah, it's literally problem solving and like being a little decoder of all the facts as well.
Hmm.
Because it's like very often it's like it's a hot ass mess. You're like, what is all of this? But actually, this is actually where we can all find our common ground, and then like now we can
Yeah,
go ahead.
absolutely, absolutely.
So for you, like you've had a lot of interesting roles kind of build up in this really awesome career. What would you kind of say was for your sort of moment of reset for you?
My moment of reset occurred probably when I went. I feel like I've had a couple, honestly, at this point in my
That's
life.
cool. Those are cool.
I had my first reset when I joined a sports company. I had gotten really exhausted in my first company because it was very focused on real world issues and figuring out how do we deliver information to customers in a way that they understand, in a way that is very thoughtful and I got exhausted because that took me through the pandemic, that took me through everything in 2020. And for a minute, I just wanted to stop talking and focus on skill building. So that allowed me to transition to a sports company where I was able to just do something more fun, do something that brought people a lot of grace. And it forced me to take a step back and say, okay, like, is this as fulfilling as being in the trenches, worrying about missions and values that really help people and guide them through their lives? And so at that moment, at this new company, that's when I finally took a step back and said, okay, who am I? What am I trying to do here? And what are the steps that I want to take over the next decade to get me closer? And I'm still figuring it out, but I think it was the first time where I stopped being so one track minded, where everything in my life was how do you get more money? How do you open up the doors so that you have stability? And from there, I started thinking about who am I as a person? What is it that, not necessarily what do I want to leave behind, but when I look back on the time of my life when I had the most capacity, am I happy with the way that I use it? And
I
so
love that.
So it really helped me to start. I started volunteering from that lens. I started doing more diversity, equity, and inclusion work, which I was also doing at my first job as well. And it just allowed me to be more intentional about the steps that I'm making and just not trying to focus only on money.
It's not always about the bag, and I
And,
think
and it
that's
low key is in this economy. I hate it, but like, it's like, but okay. One piece of context I'll add here. I'm from St. Louis, a very small city, and we have Midwest is very slow. Most people settle down earlier in their 20s. They buy houses. They stay in the same job for 50 years. Like it's very slow. And I moved from St. Louis to New York, where there was just everybody's doing
light and
everything.
day.
No, oh my God. It's like you meet somebody and they're like, I have five companies and I also have a very thriving social media profile. And I also do all these side hustles. Like everybody has all of these big things and it makes you want to catch up all the time. And so, like I said, like that moment going to that second job and just being like, okay, what do I want to leave behind? What do I want to do? I had to be in this city and in other big cities to really capture that
Yeah, I mean
picture.
it's like chasing the bag one, but also realizing that the Instagram highlight reel is just a highlight reel.
Exactly.
'Cause it's not like, and it's not, and like and focus on like what does actually matter, and they don't have to
Yeah.
be two things that are dichotomous. Like you can chase the bag and also make a difference. Like there is not, and I often I'll tell folks this. It's like, listen, do you realize that like your very existence is an act of revolution?
Absolutely.
So like start there. Like, yeah, if you are chasing the bag, that's totally cool. Because
Yeah.
like 50 years ago you couldn't. Like there
But
was very like you could not. So like the
yeah,
idea that like, I was saying this to someone earlier, it's like the idea that we get to do this stuff, we get to choose to do this stuff in 2026 is the biggest gift that we have and the biggest impact of our legacy. Full stop. Before we do anything else, what we do today, what we are doing today, is that incredible legacy that we have.
yeah. But you know what? Okay, on the other side of that, I think, is when you hear people say also our privilege then is also rest. because we are some of the first generations of Black women who can choose to relax, who can choose self care. And I see in so many conversations, we're pushing ourselves to do that. And it kind of brings me to that point of, okay, at what point do you draw the line? Are you chasing things that you're the first generation to ever have access to? So you kind of want to work yourself, not to death, but to say, what is my fullest potential? And I'm not being stopped by all of these forces that don't want to see me accomplish anything, versus I've made it far enough. Do I choose myself? Do I choose peace? Because I'm also the first generation to do that. And so I think it's always this kind of balance of, when do you give yourself the grace to enjoy what you've built, but also when do you continue to push yourselves to become your wildest dreams and your ancestors' wildest dreams because you're the first to ever do it?
I feel about both, honestly, and I don't think I don't think they can happily intersect, and I
Hmm.
think that's the way that we want to try and do this, because if we don't rest and we just keep chasing, eventually we're gonna get hit by a Mack truck.
Yeah.
Like, because like that's, I mean, I've done that where it's just like go 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 go. Like the old tagline of my first company was called was relentless hustle, and the
Hmm.
idea 15 years later that I would say that now is horrific. Like there is no universe where I could do that. Like I'm like no, because I remember getting so burnt out. I was on my couch. And it's like, oh, we have
Hmm.
all this success and we're doing all this really good stuff and everyone knows who we are, but I couldn't enjoy it. And
Right.
in this weird world, I mean, like I've had so many friends who've passed away before the age of 50
Absolutely.
from cancer and all number of things. And you're like, and I didn't get to enjoy the fruits of all that work they put in. And so it's a constant reminder for me to be like, okay, there's got to be a balance here. And can I
Hmm.
design a life that is about, doing some awesome things, making a difference, but also being very successful? Like, how do I find that balance? Doesn't mean it's going to be every single day. Everything's going to be perfectly in
Right.
alignment, but like, I'm going to try. I think that's the privilege of it all. The ability to try and do that.
Absolutely. That's a
Because
good
like,
point.
you're not going to, because like, there is no failure here. It's just like, you're going to learn. You're never going to lose. You're just going to keep learning along the way. Like, all right, cool. Maybe it's like more this way now. Maybe it's a little bit more this way. But
Absolutely.
trying to finding that intersection between rest and success, I think is an integral part, so that we are the generation that doesn't die early, um, and gets to choose to have a really good life, versus one where it's like, oh, I wish I had done that, but now couldn't do it.
Absolutely. No, and that's a good point. And I think to your point about how they can be balanced together is just constantly coming back and double checking the decisions you made and saying, is this in line with who I want to be? Is this in line with what makes me feel good? And sometimes you have to choose the discipline over the reward, but just promising yourself that it's aligned with the timeline you had in place. I remember for me, as I mentioned earlier, I had moved to New York for my first job. I had gotten a new job that was in New York, but then I became remote. So I moved to Chicago, and then I got a new job, and then I moved to California, and then I didn't like California. So I moved to New York. And it was incredibly chaotic. And I kept asking myself, I was like, do you not want stability, Tyra? Like, what's going on? Like, but then I had
Yeah,
to
what
see.
else?
No, because I was just like, okay, you're moving every year and it's expensive and exhausting. But at the same time, I was able to look back on my life and say, okay, we took this move because we wanted a job that would help you, better build your skill set, or we moved to this city because you wanted to reconnect with family and that was important to you during that time period. And so I appreciate that, even when things get very chaotic and very busy and very discipline oriented, having the ability to look back on my decision making and saying that was the right decision for me at that time is very grounding.
It really is, and forgiving yourself for it is a big
Yes.
part about it. It's like we've all made dumbass decisions, and we've also made decisions like we're human, but we've also made decisions with based on the information I had at that particular moment. I made the best decision for me, and it may not have been for anybody else, but for me, that was the best thing I could do. Best I could do, and I have to
Right.
forgive, and you have to forgive yourself for like, okay, that was a mistake. Like, all right, well, I'm human. Like,
Yeah.
well, based on the information I had at that moment, this decision I made, I don't lose from it. I will learn from it. I'm like, okay, won't do that again. Or, okay, like maybe I made it in haste or in scarcity as opposed to a place of abundance. Like, we're human and it's okay.
Absolutely.
I think especially for us as Black women to forgive ourselves because we do make mistakes. Like we can't be perfect little Autobots who never fuck up. We just have to learn from our mistakes and keep moving forward and not get so bogged down and making ourselves feel bad that we made a decision based on the information that we could at that particular moment.
Absolutely. And I think another thing that helps is being I'm very faith oriented as well. And so even when I look back and I'm like, oh, I guess that wasn't the best decision, I have to keep reminding myself that I don't know what the end of my story is. There is a world in which the decisions that I thought were bad bring me so much perspective or empathy or help to someone else that it was worth it and I just can't see it yet. And so I think about that a lot with my time in California, where I was like, that was a waste of the year. That was horrible. But I think about but I think now I have this perspective of when I become a business leader, when I become someone that is responsible for helping a person who wants to work for me understand where they can live. I know what it's like to live in a city that I don't love because I want employment. I hope having that perspective, it allows me to be a better leader to someone who might need a leader like me who thinks like that. And so it may never come. I have no idea. But that's where I like to hope that, faith is pushing me in the right direction regardless of what I see today.
It's way bigger than we ever know, and
$100.
the story that's charted for us continues to change, and we just let go and let God. And if you do that, you'll feel so much better. It just
Yeah.
really
No, I had this surrender moment a year ago.
will.
I've been at peace ever since.
Yeah, like let it go.
Feel
Like
so
same.
effective in this.
I kind of just I let it go. I'm like, all right, this is what it is. And like
It's gonna
once
be what
I
it's gonna be.
did, it's gonna be and things opened up, opportunities came along, things that totally surprised me. Where I was like, "There's no okay, great." So
Yeah.
like let it all go. Thinking about all the kind of really amazing stuff that you've been able to do, what do you think you'd probably tell 18-year-old Tyra?
I think I would tell her to be more bold and to trust myself a little bit more. I was very risk averse when I was making decisions about my career. I was not the type of person that would make any type of decision without a current plan, a fallback plan, and a contingency plan just in case everything else blew up. And so that kept me from taking risks on myself that I sometimes wonder if I had, leaned into fear a little bit more, would my life have turned out a little bit different? I'm still grateful for everything and the way that it worked out. But I definitely would have pushed myself to say, like, lean more into, you know, not necessarily trying new things, but an example would be I gave up theater and a lot of my creative passions to pursue things that I knew would build my resume up. So instead of, doing the things that I was very passionate about, I would say, okay, we have to prioritize having an internship. We have to prioritize, having all of these nonprofit and volunteer opportunities visible on your resume so you can have XYZ. And all of those things were fruitful. Like I said, it was very intentional decision making. But I'm now in a place in my life where I'm like, what do I like to do? Like, how do I like to spend my free time? What brings me joy? And I'm trying to refine that part of my life without feeling like there is something else that is more important that is going to put me in a better position in the future. So it's a lot of reframing that I'm teaching myself now. So I would definitely tell Tyra, like, don't give it all up. Figure out how to balance both. Try to continue connecting with the things that bring you joy so you don't feel this small piece that's missing. Like I think the joy is so important, and I'm trying to find my way back there today.
Oh, and you will, girl. You will. You already
I'm
are.
not
I
too
can already
worried.
see it.
No,
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 you
this is it's
already
like it's small
are. Okay.
stuff. Like it
Oh,
was not like this is kind of what I was saying earlier. It was necessary at that part of my life, right?
of
And now
course.
I'm here and I'm stable, and I'm like, okay, now we got to get out the fear out the way now because I'm rusty. But but
Yeah,
I
look,
gotta
look,
make it
and you're in the listen. You are in the best city in the world to endeavor on creative pursuits. So if you want to do improv, there's improv. If you want to do acting, there's acting. If you want to sing, there's sing. Like you
Mhm.
are. The good part about being in New York is that, like on any given, I would say on any given street corner, there are 1,000 stories, and because of
Exactly.
that, you can do whatever you want and try whatever you want and be like, all right, cool, that was interesting, and like go, like
Right.
and you never know. And that's the thing. It's like very often it's like, well, that's so far removed from what my day job is. Like, good, but
No, and
also
exactly.
like, like, but
I
also
want to
you
be
never know.
unrecognizable. Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally cool. But also, you never know that random ass thing that you do here can help you in your day job, or someone who's also in that class could also help you. It becomes your new little buddy. helps you in your day job. You never, it might be 10 years from now, like when, oh, I did that Empire Plus, I met that person,
Right.
and then we end up in a meeting and you're like, hey girl, what are you doing here? Hey girl, I didn't know you did this too. And now you have a common bond between it. I think, that is, I mean, it is a unique benefit to being in New York, I will say, but it is just like, opening your heart to opportunities and like not letting it think go. It seems like such a weird twist and such. Cool.
Yeah.
The weirder twist, the more random. Like I like to say that I'm the queen of random. You will find me at some very interesting places. Cause I'm like, why not? Like if I told you where I'm
Yeah.
going tonight, you'd be like, what? I'm like, someone invited me, and I'm like, all right, sure. I've got nothing to do today. Why not?
No. And I tell people
So
all the time, like, this stage of my life is like, embrace the cringe. Like, if it sounds weird, that's okay. Try it once. Like, if you look weird doing it, go ahead. Look weird. Let it go. On the other side of cringe is everything else that you really are looking for in life. So I love
that's
hearing that
it.
at any
That's
point in
totally
life you can
it.
pursue that.
So
Absolutely.
my last question for you, my friend. Do you have a give and or ask of the audience?
I want to go back to what I was saying earlier, just about being more thoughtful about how we engage others. I think a large part of what I'm seeing today, and it's visible in media literacy, it's visible in the way that people interact with social media and news headlines that aren't even real. Is I think we've forgotten to be inquisitive and to ask ourselves, who are we talking to? What are we sure that we're coming at someone with the right information? Have we validated it? I think if we put in a little bit more in, if we put more effort into critical thinking, into empathy, into asking questions, I think that's going to protect us a lot more today than it ever has before.
Oh, what a word, Tyra. Yes. I love that. You're so true and you're so right. It's Can we just be kind? Like
Th-
I don't need you to be everybody's buddy. I don't need you to be everyone's best friend. But we're gonna start at the basis level of just kindness. We start
Yeah,
there. Oh, way the world will be so much better.
absolutely. And even in my job today, I find myself like every time you think you're saying a fact, somebody goes, "Is that true? Who'd you hear that from? Where'd they get it from? What source was that?" And you would answer like 10 questions just trying to make sure that it's the right answer. And then you get online and you see this one fake news headline in bold and everybody's taking it and running with it. And I'm like,
You're like,
nobody actually
no.
fact checked. And I think that's something that, especially as we see AI becoming more prevalent in our times, like it's kindness, but it's also just taking an extra step to make sure that we're passing around correct, authentic information. And
Like there's
that comes
all
our
these
personal
AI
relationships.
videos, and like yes, like
Yeah.
all our it just like this is fake. The stories, like because
They just on
they've gotten
Facebook
too good for
reposting
that.
it. Yeah.
Like just because y'all
Yeah,
not, yeah. But no, I think it's
absolutely.
like discernment is key, and I think that's such a beautiful way to close that discussion. That like discernment and kindness are just base level, basis
Absolutely.
level.
Yeah.
And I
And
think I thank you so much for sharing it. I think it's so important to hear from someone like you who's in the deep in the tech every single day to be like, this is the stuff that matters. This is what actually matters. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you, my darling, for being on the podcast. I knew you'd have great advice and great stories to share. And you are just a delight. And I see you glowing along the way. And it's just warms my cold black heart.
no, thank
And
you
I'm
so
so
much for
glad to
allowing
have
me to
you.
do this. Thank you
Of
so much for the
course.
opportunity.
Sure thing. We'll put details in the show notes so everyone can connect with you. And that's our show.